What's up, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of Fight Talk with your boy, Mike D. That is me. Very excited. So this is part of the Sports Fanaddicts podcast umbrella, if you will, with my co-host, Steve Anderson, and Christopher Nocella himself. It's been quite some time since we recorded some podcasts due to COVID, threw a couple of wrenches into our personal lives. So we've been talking about it for a while. We wanted to get some fight talk incorporated into this podcast. So this is our way of doing so. And there's no better way, right? July 11th, today, Fight Island in Abu Dhabi, Yas Island. This card is absolutely stacked. I'm so pumped. I can't wait. So I want to talk about it. We're going to go over the main card. This main card is absolutely loaded to the friggin' gills. I can't say enough how loaded this friggin' card is from top to bottom. I mean, even some of the prelim fights are going to be super entertaining, but I don't even want to talk about that. I want to talk about this main card here. 10 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. It kicks off with Amanda Ribas and Paige Vanzant. I'm sure everyone knows who Paige Vanzant is, right? Paige Vanzant is a phenomenal fighter, but she is beloved and followed for other reasons, if you know what I mean. She is super talented. I think she'll be successful no matter what, win, lose, or draw. No matter how successful she is in the UFC, she's got a bright career ahead of her. I say that because I don't think this fight's going to go her way by any way, shape, or form. Amanda Ribas, we saw her not too long ago against Mackenzie Dern, right, who everyone had super high on the radar, and they thought Mackenzie Dern, and she still might be, a promising prospect. Amanda Ribas absolutely dominated her from the first bell to the very last bell. It was a dominating, absolutely fantastic performance on her part, and she kind of put herself on the map. And look, it got her this amazing fight with Paige Vanzant. Now, Mackenzie Dern, honestly, I would probably say was a tougher fight than Paige, but Paige is a bigger name, right? She's a huge star, although she hasn't been super successful in the UFC, but she's a huge name. So this is a great fight for Amanda Ribas. Paige, don't get it twisted. She's a super tough girl. I mean, she can take a punch. She can take a beating. Not saying that she will get beaten that badly, but my point is, she's no walk in the park, Paige. Yeah, so don't get it twisted. Paige Vanzant is a tough chick. She can fight her ass off. So let's not forget. She was on Dancing with the Stars. You know, she looks like a girl's girl, but she's tough. I mean, we can't dismiss her as a challenge, but I think Amanda Ribas is going to win this fight pretty handily. I'd be surprised if she didn't. I think it goes to unanimous decision. I think it goes all 3 rounds, and Amanda Ribas wins by unanimous decision, 30-27. I just think she's too big, too strong, too long and rangy. I think she kind of just picks her apart, honestly. Kind of what she did to Mackenzie Dern. I kind of see the same result here. If she finished Paige, I wouldn't be super shocked. I just think Paige is tough enough to hang in there all 3 rounds. But I have Amanda Ribas winning this one, and I think she'll be especially after this fight, she will be a huge name and encouraging prospect moving forward. So I got Amanda Ribas in this fight. The next fight, and this fight probably hasn't gotten as much talk as it should due to all the other fantastic fights on this card, and that's Jessica Andrade against Rose Namajunas, and I think I pronounced that right. This fight potentially could be fight of the night. I'm super excited about this fight. Rose, obviously a future world champion, as good as it gets, and Jessica Andrade, a prior world champion. So this is going to be an amazing fight. Now, if you remember, they did fight once before when Rose was champion. And she was picking Jessica apart for those first 2 rounds. She was having her way, and it looked like it was going to be a pretty easy victory for Rose. But then the tank, Jessica Andrade, because she's a little mini tank, got a hold of her, picked her up, and slammed her on her damn head and knocked her out. It's UFC, it's MMA, shit happens. And unfortunately, that happened to Rose. And that's how Jessica became champion. But, I kind of, not that it couldn't happen again, but I kind of look at it as a freak accident, and for Rose. I think Rose wins this fight. I can see this going all 5 rounds too. I just think Rose picks her apart, kind of what she was doing in the first fight. And as long as she kind of just keeps her distance, fights smart, I think she gets it done. I think this is a super tough fight for Jessica. She knows that she's going to have to. I think in order for her to win, she's going to have to kind of have something crazy happen like the first fight, and I don't see that happening. Also, I thought that was crazy. I just looked at Rose's record a little while ago, and she's only 8-4. Feels like her record will be a lot more dominant than that, and I think that kind of speaks to how good she is. I expected her to have some crazy record like 12-2 or something crazy, but she's 8-4. So if you're a casual, don't just look at her record and be like, oh, she's 8-4. She's good. I think she's the best fighter in that division. I think she'll be champion again. She just got to get through this one, and then she'll have the title shot, no doubt. So I got Rose. I'm predicting it'll go all 5 rounds. I'm sorry, I keep saying 5 rounds. A 3-round fight. That's what I'm saying. This fight's so good that I think it's a championship fight. It's not. It's not a championship fight. It's a 3-round fight, which even more so I like Rose because now there's less time for something crazy to happen or go wrong. So I think Rose wins this by decision. I see her winning all 3 rounds, kind of similar to Amanda Ribas. I kind of see the same kind of domination and one-sided fight. As good as Andrade is, I just think Rose is too skilled, much better of a striker, much better managing distance, movement, footwork. I mean, she's grown a lot, and she gets better every single fight. So I think Rose wins this one, and she'll be on track for a title shot with a win here. Now, the third fight on the card, and this starts the basically three-peat here with title fights. So from here on out, we got 5-round bouts. So the first one, this is an interesting one. Petr Yan and Jose Aldo. I still kind of don't know which way to go here. You obviously got Petr Yan, who a lot of hype around him, and rightfully so. He's been dominating ever since he's joined the UFC, and he's quickly kind of catapulted to this title shot. Although it's a vacancy bantamweight division, they gave it to him, right? So I mean, he's definitely earned it. Jose Aldo, I mean, obviously a legend, future Hall of Famer, so he deserves it too. I know some people don't think, because he came off of that loss to Marlon Moraes, people thought he won, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, in the record books, the judges said he lost, so you lost. I thought he won, but he still lost, so it's weird to get a title shot off of a loss, but I realized at the time Cejudo was the champion, and he called out Aldo, and then Cejudo was like, I'm out, I'm retiring, so they couldn't be an Indian giver and promise Aldo a title shot and say, oh, sorry, Cejudo just bounced, we can't give you the title shot. So that's basically kind of how this transpired. Whether you agree or disagree, I think it's still an amazing fight. Petr Yan has amazing hands. You see it. You saw it last time in the Uriah Faber fight. I mean, he's got great striking overall. Dude, high pressure, moves forward, kind of puts his head down and put his hands on you. And if he does, it's a long night for whoever's in front of him. Then you got Aldo. I mean, this guy has experience as it gets. He's fought everyone from the best of the best, 145, now in 135. I mean, Jose Aldo's a legend. So this fight, I think, can go really either way. I'm leaning toward Aldo. I really do. Petr Yan, I think if he wins this, I'll definitely be on the hype train. I'm just not there yet. He's coming off the win against Uriah Faber. Yes, Uriah Faber's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend, but he's also 40 years old. He was coming off a layoff, and that's really his biggest win to date. I know he had that win against Jimmy Rivera, but even that fight I wasn't super impressed. I was impressed when he lands a shot, it does damage, but outside of those shots that he landed against Rivera toward the end of the first and second round, he wasn't dominating or arguably even winning those rounds. And then he stole the rounds with those big shots that led to Rivera falling flat on his ass and wins the rounds in the judges' eyes, and rightfully so. So, no doubt that he's good. The guy's skilled. I just need to see more. he hasn't really fought the best of the best as the contenders in 135 because that division's arguably one of the best right now. That division's loaded. You got Sterling, Marlon Moraes, Aldo, Peter Yan, Corey Sandhagen, Sun Sao, Garbrandt, Cruz. I mean, the division is stacked, and if I left somebody out, my apologies, but it's crazy, that division. So to think that he's already here just after beating Jimmy Rivera, who's kind of on the probably back end of the top 10 at this point, getting the title shot after Faber, it's whatever. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but I need to see more. I'm picking Aldo here just because of the experience, and Aldo packs some heat too. So this is going to be a super entertaining fight. It can be a slugfest for sure. I kind of noticed Peter Yan kind of moves heavy on that lead leg, and if Aldo, I know we say this every fight, he needs to bring back those ridiculous leg kicks. If he does that, I think that's the path to victory, or even the least path of resistance for him. I think if he does that, we'll really see what Peter Yan's made of, because this isn't going to be no walk in the park. Unless he pulls a Conor McGregor and knocks him out in 13 seconds during the first round with a punch, then obviously he's not going to be tested. But I think he'll be tested, and we'll really get to see how good Peter Yan really is. So, exciting fight. I'm going to go Aldo. Prediction? I almost want to say decision, but in an effort to not say decision for every fight, I'm going to say Aldo. I'm going to say Aldo wins TKO in the third round. I want to say that the leg kicks, body, Aldo works the body very well. I'm going to say it adds up, and then it's going to slow Peter Yan down. Third or fourth round, but I'm going to say third TKO. Aldo wins the belt, back on top again. Co-main event. Obviously, it's a featherweight title fight rematch between the champion Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. Huge Max fan. I'm biased. I'll say it up front. I want Max to win. I do. I want Max to win. Now, will he? My gut kind of says no. The way the first fight went, and from my vantage point, Alexander kind of just controlled the fight. And not that he dominated, but it was domination in the sense of control, where it seemed that Max just really had no answer or no entryway to really take the fight over and win. Because usually we'll see Max, as the fight goes on, because we've seen so many title fights now, 5-round bouts. Once the third, fourth round, even fifth round come around, his opponent's usually wearing down and Max is picking up. And he just kind of wears on them, and he just has that friggin' tenacity moving forward, insane cardio, and he usually just out-hearts his opponent. But we didn't see that last fight, and Alexander's gas tank was just as good. So that's where I usually lean for Max, because that's like his big advantage in most cases, but we didn't see it here. So it's tough for me to kind of see a situation or scenario where Max pulls it off, because he's not known to knock people out, right? He doesn't have crazy power, just more so volume and consistently moving forward, and just, it takes a toll on an opponent when that guy keeps moving forward. Chin's crazy, cardio through the roof, like I said. So sounds like I'm picking Volkanovski, but I'm going to pick Holloway because I'm biased and I want Holloway to win. It's weird that he's been saying he hasn't really trained. He did some virtual sessions with his trainers. It doesn't sound encouraging whatsoever, because if you didn't make adjustments or you didn't do certain things, it's hard to see how you win this fight. Maybe shortly after the first fight, he recognized, and his coaches recognized, some changes and adjustments he needs to make, and maybe they kind of implemented them at that time. And then since COVID, he hasn't really been able to train. So I'm hoping he at least recognizes what he needs to do and some changes he needs to implement in order to come on top this time. So I'm going to go Max. I think it's a decision. Max is not going to put Volkanovski away. I definitely don't see that happen. I just think Max does make some adjustments and applies pressure. I think the volume's going to add up, and I think Max will win. It's going to be close, though. Probably a split decision. Probably a split decision. It's going to be super close. I mean, this is a super closely contested fight, so it's literally a toss-up, but I'm going to go Max. Last but not least, the main event, and I am so stoked about this one, and we know who it is. Kamaru Usman. I don't even care about him. He's fighting against my boy, Jorge Masvidal. Let's go. So I think that tells you who I'm picking. I'm picking Masvidal. I always pick the marketable people because I'm a fan of the UFC, right? So I've always rooted for Conor. I rooted for John Jones. I'm going to say that right now. I like the guys that are going to make the sport bigger. Whether people don't like them because they run their mouths too much or they seem phony or doesn't seem authentic, whatever the case may be, I like the guys that are going to put UFC on a larger scale. Now, obviously they already are, but you want guys that are super marketable because it just makes the division and it makes the sport in general so much more likable and entertaining. It's just the truth. So Usman's not that guy. I mean, let's be honest. He's and we've seen this, a ton of interviews, that I've watched, people talking about him. He's kind of like in the middle. He's not hated. He's a nice guy, and he's not super liked either. He's just in the middle, and it's tough to promote somebody like that that's just kind of in the middle, right? It's tough. I feel for him. It's not his fault. It's who he is. But I'm going Masvidal. I mean, aside from him being more marketable, Masvidal, I just do like Masvidal a lot better. Always been a fan of Jorge. The dude's game as they come. I remember watching this dude in the backyard brawls on YouTube with Kimbo Slice, just throwing down in South Florida backyards. I mean, that was pretty sick. So you can't not like him. But I mean, this guy's stepping in on 6 days' notice. He cut the 20 pounds, made weight, and you even heard Dana White say, and I'm not surprised at all, that now the pay-per-view is trending Conor Khabib numbers. Now, there are other variables, right? There's really no other sports going on, so it's going to attract more eyeballs to UFC, which is really the only active sport at the moment. And then Fight Island, that has a lot of appeal. Obviously, people want to see the landscape of it and just curious to see how they did everything. They want to listen to it. I get that. But the other big variable is Jorge Masvidal. Make no mistake, no doubt about it. Gilbert Burns, I feel bad. He tested positive for COVID. Hope he's doing well and recovering. But let's be honest, although that fight would have been fantastic, I was actually really interested in the stylistic matchup between Usman and Burns because they're kind of similar. I was going to see who was going to really overpower who and who was going to really kind of just take charge. I thought that fight was going to be incredible, but this is the fight that the fans wanted to see ultimately. So no disrespect to Gilbert Burns. It's unfortunate that he had to step out. I think he'll still get a shot no matter what. I mean, he's a number one contender. So I hope he does still get a title shot when he recovers. Having said that, this is the fight that everybody wants to see. People have been wanting to see this fight since the Super Bowl weekend, I believe it was, when Masvidal and Usman were face-to-face in a media or radio session of some sort, and they were jawing at one another, and I was like, yeah, they're making this fight. I mean, Masvidal was coming off the 5-second knockout knee to Ben Askren, then he beat Nate Diaz, and for the BMF, not that that means anything, but he was the rising star. And now the rising star, who paid his dues and deserves it, been in the game for 16, going on 17 years, is feuding with the current champion, Usman. It's the fight to make. And then there were money issues. Masvidal wanted more than the UFC was willing to give him. So there were kind of a stalemate, and UFC is going to UFC and move on to find a replacement. That was Gilbert Burns. So I get both sides of why they weren't able to make it. I get it. Masvidal wants his money. You got to do what's best for you to get your money. And then the UFC is a business. They're going to do what's best for them financially. But ultimately, the UFC gods, came to us and gave us what we wanted to see. Masvidal said since he's stepping up on 6 days' notice, save the friggin' card. UFC came pretty darn close to what he wanted. It was more so on the pay-per-view side. He wanted more skin in the game when it comes to pay-per-views, and rightfully so. I mean, it's trending crazy levels right now because of Masvidal. There's other variables, like I said, but Masvidal is the key reason as to why or Dana White is saying the trend for the pay-per-view for this event is skyrocketing. So with that being said, let's talk about the actual matchup itself. So I do think this is a super tough matchup for Masvidal. I mean, I think really anyone is for when it comes to Usman, because he probably has the best cardio that I've seen in all of UFC. The guy's gonna sit down between friggin' rounds. He's just having the time of his life. Never breathing heavily, it seems like. Outstanding wrestling. He mixes it up well. He's not bad on the feet. I mean, he can hurt you on the feet for sure. All the striking isn't his forte. He can hold his own, and that cardio is just through the roof. Especially with a wrestler, it gets crazy to see just someone just take you down at will and ride you and just grind, and like that is like there's nothing, in my opinion, more disheartening when someone's doing that to you and then they're not tired. It just keeps happening and happening. There's nothing you can do. That's Kamaru Usman. I mean, he's the champion, and that's really why. I mean, the dude's a stud, not taking anything away from him. But if there's anyone, in my opinion, in that division that can get it done, I think it is Masvidal. I mean, he's a wild card. I mean, he's been in the game, like I said, for 16 plus years. He's seen it all. He's trained with the best. He's really, and it's weird to see that he's gotten better. He's putting all his tools together. He's almost like understanding the game better, and he's treating it more like a sport and a technical battle than a fight itself. Although he has that dog in him and he'll fight, but he's kind of having a nice balance right now and blended the two so nicely where he is looking like he can really win this fight and be a champion. I mean, I certainly won't be shocked. I know the odds open to 3-1, as Usman is obviously the favorite, but I mean, especially with those odds, like from a betting standpoint, I don't want to give you betting advice, but I would go Masvidal for sure with those odds. It's obviously more likely that Usman wins, being it was a short notice for Masvidal. I know he was still probably training for quite some time, but it wasn't a full blown out camp. But this is an interesting fight. I really don't know what to think. I can't wait to watch this fight. Like I am so excited for this one because I'm just curious to see, well, does Usman take him down at will? Is Masvidal takedown defense hold up? If when he gets taken down, can he get back up? Does Usman get a little cocky and maybe want to stand with him? Because I know he said, I'll stand with him, bless him with his hands, or whatever he said. I mean, I don't know if I do that because that's a dangerous game you're playing. If you want to stand with Masvidal, you know, he'll let you with a 2-piece and a soda or 3-piece and a soda, and it'll be night. We've seen it, and this guy's striking is top-notch. It's evolved. It's super crisp. I mean, this guy, knocked out Darren Till, which is no easy task, and he did that. So major props to Masvidal. I know I didn't mention that fight, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow. He is the real deal. You know, I know a lot of people think he's a journeyman, blah, 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 but he's here for a reason. I think I'm going to go with Masvidal. I say he gets this done. I really do. It's the 5-round fight. I mean, Masvidal has only got to land a punch or two to put your lights out. And I know Usman's got a chin. He definitely does, but I'm not so sure he's fought anyone with a striking skills like Masvidal. Woodley obviously has incredible power, but he really didn't let punches go, if you remember that fight. So never really had a chance. I mean, credit to Usman, though, for neutralizing that, but I don't think he'll be able to neutralize Masvidal not letting his hand go. That's not, I promise you that's not going to happen. Masvidal is going to put those hands on him at some point. So it'll be interesting to see if Usman holds up to it. I know he did with Colby, but again, Colby's not a striker like Masvidal is. Masvidal's much more creative, unpredictable, harder hitter. I mean, everything about his striking is better than anyone that Usman's fought as far as a striker. Yeah, so it's tough. It's a really tough fight. It's two completely different styles, kind of, but they're both kind of good just about everything. They're super experienced. They're super well versed. That's why this is a championship fight. But I'm gonna go Jorge. I think Jorge gets it done. I think he finishes Usman. I almost said Marty Usman because I listened to Ben Askren so much on his interviews and Colby always talking. But I'm gonna go with Jorge. I think he gets it done. I think he finishes him. I really do. I'm not going to predict the round because I don't know. Again, I think it's just a matter of time. I think it's one of those scenarios where at some point he's going to land, especially if he does stuff takedowns or is able to get up and Usman wants to regain his energy or breath by standing there. You know, if you're not just going to take down, you know, there's usually some in between where you're trying to recompose and shoot wisely. And I think in those moments, that's going to be where Masvidal has to capitalize, and I think he will. So at some point, I'm not saying it's going to be quick, but any round really wouldn't shock me. I think Masvidal gets it done, and which would be great for the for the UFC. Maybe not in the communication talks with trying to get Masvidal the money that he wants, but marketability-wise and just overall scale, I think this is best case scenario because you know what that lines up? Potential Conor McGregor fight for the 170 title shot against Jorge. That's what this all lines up. That's what's going to happen if Jorge wins. So that's what would be at stake, in my opinion. The Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal super fight at 170. The UFC, Dana White would be salivating at their mouth for that fight and for that cheddar. That would be, I think, the highest pay-per-view in UFC history, no doubt. But that's it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. The fights still happen to happen tonight. And even after that, we know shit happens. So I'm going to sign off. Thanks for tuning in. Definitely watch the fights tonight, one way or the other. Make sure you tune in. This is going to be one of the best cards, I think, ever. Definitely of the year. So be sure to check it out. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.